Guys, how's it going? Today we are going to spend some time here in the greenhouse making a couple of wreaths. These are hopefully destined for the front gate if they end up looking big enough. I made a couple of wreaths for the gate last winter and I cannot find the wreath forms. They could be anywhere. And wreath forms, I mean, as you know, they look like this. They're really easy to misplace or tuck somewhere where you think you'll remember where they're at, and then you don't. I want to say that the wreath forms I got last year were 20 some inches, like maybe even 24 inches. And the biggest ones I have on hand are 18 inches. And we do not have a craft store in town anymore. And the garden center, my parents' garden center, does sell wreath forms. And I called down there and I think the biggest one they have is 16 inches. So I'm just going to go with 18 inches and see what happens. If they don't end up looking the right scale, we'll just use them on doors. I don't have any wreaths on doors except for on the mail house. So either way, we're going to end up with a couple of pretty wreaths somewhere on the property. And my wreath forms don't even match. So I found this one. This is 18 incher. And then I found this one, which this is also an 18 incher, right? Look at the tag. Yeah, 18 inch. So they're both the same size, but you can see that, you know, obviously this one's thicker. So to make them look the right thickness in the end, I think what I'm going to do, I've got this little spare piece of cedar garland from the balcony project that I cut off the end of one of the pieces. I'm just going to lash this to the wreath form first before I actually start building my wreath so that I've got the same kind of bulk. It's pretty similar, right? Hopefully. This whole project feels a little haphazard, but it's the weekend. It's been drizzling outside all morning. I do think it stopped raining. It's kind of a gray day. It was very foggy and rainy when we woke up this morning. And it's cozy here in the greenhouse. I need to actually take my coat off. That's better. I did also want to show you real quick before we start our project that this mangave, which this is called Catch a Wave, you can see the mother plant down here and its bloom stalk. It is now in bloom, and I just wanted to show it to you. The blooms themselves aren't super significant. I wonder if I can just pull one of them off here. Holy moly! Ah! The whole thing, that was the straw that apparently, there we go. Apparently this one bloom was keeping everything upright. You can see like itty bitty petals in here and the stamens, and there's a ton of pollen. Look at that. Lots of it. So you kind of wait forever and hope that there's going to be, I don't know, some big old white or yellow blooms. That's kind of all it does right there. Just shoots out its stamens. And you can see that I've got a moon glow in bloom as well, or fixing to bloom at least. Get it out of the roof there. And one more of our Catch a Waves right here. That's shooting up a bloom stalk. And one of the mangaves over here is also blooming. This is another moon glow. My goodness. Oof, there we go. Anyway, I always just find that interesting just to see what they're going to do and when they're going to decide to shoot up a bloom stalk or not. I've had some agaves and mangaves that have been around for quite a long time and haven't even attempted to bloom yet. I don't know what is typically the cycle for that, like how many years until they bloom, because then the mother plant will start to die. And usually at that point, they start to produce a bunch of pups or little baby plants around the base of the plant that you can then harvest and then kind of perpetuate that plant's life. And then our Aztec Kings, which this is a new one coming out next year, they've just performed beautifully. There's something very crisp and clean that I like about the structure and the look of these plants. But this project is going to be very fluffy and full, and we're going to use a mixture of noble fir boughs right here. And we'll just be trimming these into usable size pieces. Princess pine, which will give us that kind of beautiful bicolor blue-green look. And then we've got some incense cedar right in here. The kids and I just did a wreath project in here the other day, so I already have some greens sitting here on the table, as well as some holly, which I don't know if I'm going to use holly or not. Possibly. Last year I just used greens and then did big red bows, and I thought it was really striking. I kind of liked the simplicity of it. Okay, now I'm going to walk you through how I make a wreath. You do need a pair of pruners. You need paddle wire, and this is probably 22 gauge right here, and I prefer it in kind of more of a round shape. It's easier to use. A pair of gloves if you like to use gloves, and then some kind of a form. So clearly I'm using two different forms. They're these kind right here, and then you can use grapevine or whatever. Now, if you happen to see the reel where the kids were making their wreaths the other day, it was more of a kid-friendly version of making a wreath, kind of understanding the basics of how to layer the evergreens, but we cut out cardboard forms and used jute twine. So I had the kind of donut of cardboard and then tied off a piece of jute twine and then just wrapped it all the way around the form and then tied it off at the end so that they could simply slide the greens underneath the jute twine. That clearly isn't a type of wreath that can be hung outside because the cardboard would get mushy, everything would fall apart if it was introduced to any moisture. And it's also not as long lasting because as the greens start to dry, the jute twine is probably not tight enough to hold everything in place unless you really jam stuff in there, which I tried to show the kids, like really make sure that your greens, you're putting enough in there to where the string feels tight. And that's something when we use the paddle wire and the wire forms, things are just a lot tighter. You can pull the wire and really get the greens like kind of lodged in there. So I did want to clarify that. The cardboard project is super fun and really fun like, as a basic concept, but this way that we're doing today is definitely longer lasting. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is kind of prepare my space, and we're going to work off the grapevine wreath form because it's, I think, maybe a little easier to see, and I'll get you closer when we get to that part. Just wash these gloves. Nice. Okay, first thing I do after I've kind of cleared my area is create little piles of greens. And what I mean by that is I take each element that I'm going to be using in this wreath and I cut them into, I mean, we're not going to use this big old thing for a wreath. We want smaller pieces like this right here. And you want to make your pieces roughly the same size, and the size of your pieces and the size of your bundles that you make to put on your wreath will kind of dictate the size of your wreath in the end. So if you're making a very small wreath, you might do half size bundles. If you're doing a larger wreath than I'm making today, you might need bigger pieces. It'll all make sense, hopefully, in a minute. I would, though, err on cutting things longer than you need to because you can always trim them. And the cut up ones that I have that I've taken all the nice tips off of, I just let these dry out and they make for excellent fire starters. So I've got my pile of noble fir. Got our incense cedar. Okay, we've got all of our elements ready. We've got our fir, paddle wire, wreath form, pine, and incense cedar. So then we take our paddle wire. We want to start off with kind of a long piece like this, and we're going to attach it to the wreath form, and I'll bring you up close for this part. This wants to stick to the table. You've got your wire right here. Basically, just take it around the wreath form, tie it off to itself, and then also find somewhere along the form to wrap it around a few times. And then back to itself. Okay, so once you have it tied off like that, you're going to take your paddle and you're going to wrap it around the wreath form really tightly, like 3 times. So it is secured. You know what? I don't think I'm going to wear gloves for this. They're wanting to stick to the paddle. Probably because they're too clean. Now we are going to start making our bundles. To do that, I usually start with a piece of fir first because it's our bulkiest. And then I grab a few other elements, remembering that the size of our bundles in the beginning is kind of what we want to maintain throughout our entire building process, and that will determine the width of the wreath. And because I want to make these for the gate, hopefully they look big enough, I'm going to kind of err on making some larger size bundles today. Maybe larger than I would normally for this size of wreath form. So I'm going to add a few more pieces to this one, make it pretty thick. That's a pretty good sized bundle right there. So what we do is we find where that paddle wire is. We lay the first bundle right on top of where we attached the wire on. While holding it to the form, we take our paddle and go around 2 or 3 times, pulling really tight again, because as these dry, they will desiccate or shrivel a little bit. And if your wire's not tight enough, they could possibly slip out. But don't pull it too tight because I had broken my wire before. Okay, so that's our first bundle attached right there. And see if I can err on making them kind of wide and out, like to the outside. I think it might end up looking big enough. Ooh, that's a nice one. Let's make our next bundle. Right here. And what we do is just lay it slightly overlapping the first bundle that we've put on. So this one will lay like this, and you can kind of manipulate your branches a little bit if you need them to kind of come in or go out. And sometimes I'll build a wreath by doing one bundle facing out, the next one facing in, out, in, out, in, out. Kind of just depends. We take our paddle wire again, pull it 2 or 3 times around this bundle. We do not cut the wire until the very end. It's all one continuous piece. Okay, let's get a different angle for our third bundle. See this long tail from the pine branch? You can go in and cut anything that's kind of poking out too far before you put on your next bundle. Okay, so here's my next bundle. You can see where the second one is attached. So we're just gonna lay this one down, kind of fluff it out a little bit, paddle wire around the wreath form 3 times. Okay, then you can kind of fluff and manipulate things if you need to. And don't be afraid to add individual pieces. If you feel like, oh, I need a little bit more under here or out here, just go ahead and wire in individual pieces at whatever point you need to. So that's what we're looking like so far. What I'm going to do is just continue to do the same thing. When I get to the very end piece, we'll stop and I'll show you how to end it. All right, things are looking pretty good, and you can see where I just put on my last bundle and the position of the first bundle. So if you lift that up, you can see we've got this much wreath form left. So we're going to continue building like we have been, but we're going to be sliding the new pieces of evergreen underneath that first bundle. And once we get it all the way kind of tucked under here and it looks like a continuous shape, we will make a long tail with our wire and we'll cut it at that point and start feeding it around the wreath. And I'll try to get close up on that part when we get that done. And we'll end up tying the paddle wire off to the back. Now, if you get it, you know, like this far, maybe 2 more bundles, and it still looks like a little scant and you're having a hard time making it look full at the very end, that's a really good place to put your wreath hanger. It allows room for that, and it's also a really good place usually to put a bow. So if you end up with a more skinny spot in your wreath, that's the perfect spot for those 2 things. Like I can already tell right here, I just maybe need to fluff it a little bit, but this part looks a little bit thinner than this part. So we'll talk about that when I've got it all completed, because you can wire in more pieces to those scant areas, or you can trim off a little bit. If you've got some wild, more thick pieces on one side, you can always go in and trim some of those off. Okay, so let's try to get this one done. Okay, I just popped it up here so that we could take a look at the overall shape. Overall, it looks pretty good. You want to make sure that your hole is looking pretty even on all sides. And at this point, you can see mine's a little bit like shaped like this, which we could go ahead and hang our wreath differently if we wanted. Probably can't do it one-handed. Or you can take the greens and start like tucking some in or fluffing some out. And this is a good time too to notice any spots that might be a little bit wider and either tuck the greens up. You can use a little piece of wire to wire them up, or you can trim them off or leave it. Let it be a little bit more natural. I think this is going to be plenty big for the gate. I'm hoping anyway. And once we get our big red ribbon on it, it'll be gorgeous. I'm also not adverse to using a hot glue gun. And I've done that a lot. If there's just like one little spot that you want to pop something in and you just can't figure out how to get the wire weaved through there, just hot glue it in. It's no big deal. Nobody will ever know. But bows and ribbons really do hide a lot of ills, especially in the beginning days of making wreaths. When you get more used to it, you really kind of get the hang of the rhythm of how to put the bundles on, and it comes out fairly even. Not ever perfect, but even enough. Okay, so this next one is going to be interesting. So we're going to do the exact same thing with our paddle wire. Hopefully we have enough wire on this one. I don't know. I might have to stop and tie this one off and start a new paddle right in the middle of a wreath, which is completely fine to do too. If we have to do that, I'll stop and show you. But we'll tie it off to our wreath form. I'm going to wire this thicker piece on first to be kind of the base. And some of the greens will pop out. You know, these longer ones, we'll be able to use those kind of as part of the greens of the wreath. And then we're going to go in and build it exactly the same way. I did run out of paddle wire before I was finished, so let me show you what I'm going to do. I cut a long tail like I normally do, and I am going to flip it around the backside, tip my wreath upside down. All of these greens are firmly secured, so I'm not worried about flipping the wreath upside down. And I'm just going to tie this off like I normally do, and then I'm going to tie on a new piece of paddle wire, just like I did in the beginning, and just continue on. So let's tie this off. And by tie off, I don't mean literally tie. I mean just fold it around pieces of the wreath form, like little sections of the wreath form. You can find where you've got other wires, and just twirl it around until you don't have any wire left. I've got my new paddle right here. And I'm just going to kind of do the same thing. I figure eight it around the wreath form. Back around. New one's attached. So let's flip it back over. I'm gonna roll it around the wreath form 2 or 3 times and pull tight. Now the new one's attached and we can continue on. We're almost done. We were so close with that first paddle. Oh, you guys, we're on our way up front with these wreaths and the sun came out. It feels awesome out here. Here's Aaron. Need a ride?
Yeah.
Aaron's gonna help me decide where to put the wreaths. We have to decide whether to put them on the brick pillars or the gate itself.
Oh, the gate.
Oh, really?
100% gate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought there was gonna be like a little discussion.
Well, I mean, if you want them on the pillars, you can do it. But...
Well, I thought it would be fun just to hold them up and see what it looked like. Yeah. I think you're right. I wasn't really considering how much further it would need to hang down than the light.
Oh, yeah.
I think the only way it would work is if we did something larger than this and did it around the light. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I still don't think that would even...
Like it would need to be around the light. That's too low.
Yeah.
And if we did something, it would need to be bigger than this and it would need to just ring around the light and then you could do a big red bow on it. So we're just waiting for the gate to close now. Oh, here it comes. It smells so good. The whole greenhouse, you step in there, it's like, oh.
It's a Christmassy smell.
It is. Now, we have to determine if these are big enough. Is that big enough?
I mean, it's fine. I don't, in answer to your question, no, I don't think it is, but...
Should I put them somewhere else?
Do you feel like they're big enough?
Well, can you hold it?
Sure.
Well...
I think it looks good. But
they'll have big red bows on them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking, like, is it the perfect size? I don't think it's the perfect size.
The problem is that I don't know where my big wreath forms are.
Just make them out of cardboard.
Well, can't do that. Not for out here.
Kids.
Not out here. But I don't know where to get big enough wreath forms in our town.
Oh, we'll just do these then.
Okay.
Maybe we can order big ones for next year.
Yeah, I like that idea. The problem is that the doors we have downstairs where I'd hang these, they're all glass, like completely glass, and I don't like to look at the back of wreaths from inside. I don't like that look, and I don't like it blocking light or blocking, I don't know, your view. So I mean, it's the great room doors and the kitchen door, and even our front door is half glass, so you'd hang it right over the glass unless you wanted to hang it down low, which would look weird. So anyway, I think this is gonna do for this year. I tried to make them as puffy as I could. As I could. But we'll get the big red bows on. It'll match the mail house bow, and I think it'll be fine. Okay, guys, so here's what we're gonna do. We went and grabbed some tree rope, which is just black twine that's soft and flexible. And we're going to count to the center of each one of these gates. I think the center is what I did last time. And we tie off to one of the finials and then hang the wreath. And then we use zip ties to sort of secure it in place so it doesn't go back and forth. And once they're hung up on the gate, I will make the bows and we'll get those attached.
Okay. You did it.
You think that's even? You think that's even. I don't know. The bow really helps make them pop, even though they're not quite big enough. I still think they look pretty. And I'm having to make the bows right here because the bed of the truck or the bed of the gator is a complete mess. It's all muddy. And this is 4-inch wide red velvet ribbon. It is one-sided, but it's wired. It's the stuff I've been using kind of all along this winter. Just make a standard bow basically, and then you can manipulate the ribbon so that the good side's facing out. Okay, I'm gonna go compare these loops to the size of the other ones. I think we got it pretty close. Then I take a little piece of paddle wire and I feed it through the back of the bow right in the center. And tighten it. Okay, we can go attach it now. So I'm just going to use the black string right here that's around the center, hanging it up, and we're just going to feed it around the back of that string. Easier said than done. Okay, so it's attached. Now we can mess with the ribbon. I think they look really good. I love the pop of color. So now we need to attach them to the back or from the back so they don't move around. So what I do is just find the wreath form right here, and I'll go through the wreath form and just zip tie it right here and zip tie it on the other side. So just 4 zip ties total. All right, guys, there we go. All done. It looks very festive. And last year, the wreaths did beautifully on the gate. They looked beautiful all winter long. I just absolutely loved them. And you might remember when we hung these last year, we did not have brick pillars. It was just the gate perched out here. There were no plants around it. The maple trees were there, but no pillars, no structure around it. So it's coming right along. And I think I'm just gonna go ahead and get online today and order the proper size form, which I believe was 24 inches, because these are a little undersized, but it makes me happy to know we just used the supplies that we had on hand here. I'm kind of at that point right now with Christmas decorations. We don't have many projects left. Really, I just have the mantle inside, and then there might be one other project that we do that's Christmas decor related. We're almost done, but this just adds such a bright festive pop. I'm loving it. Also, I want to give you an update while we're up here on the walkway. Look at that. Oh, it's looking so much better. We do need to fuss with the stones a little bit. I like the curve on this side, but it's not as curved on this. It comes out a little bit straight. So we'll get that fixed, but this whole thing has heat cables under it. Because even when the sun is out, like today when the sun's out, this is still in the shade. And you can imagine when it gets snowy and icy out here, it would never be a safe place to walk for the delivery drivers. So we had the heat cables installed underneath, and that will keep this walkway clear. No ice, no snow, a clear path to the mail house, and everyone has been using it. Like, I don't even think we need to put a sign out that says mail house or deliveries in here, please, because everybody just, they know, I guess, which is awesome because I would rather not have a sign out here if at all possible. And that is it for today's project. It was super nice spending some time in the greenhouse, just enjoying the smells and just the, it was quiet and just wonderful. And it's an extra treat that the sun is trying to come out. It's behind a cloud right now, but it looks like it's gonna come back out, and it's just so glorious out here when it is. Just brightens everything up, and love it. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.